Celestial Falcon, issue number 1. Chris, Lisa, Brant, Lucas, congratulations guys on making it happen. Hey Frontline fans, welcome back to Comic Frontline, and fans, you're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to do that all-important comic book review. So you, the fans, can make a decision on what comics to buy, and today, guys, we're talking about my good friend's comic, and that is Celestial Falcon, issue number 1. This is probably one of the hardest reviews I ever had to do. But again, it's part of the game here. You write a comic, you send it to me, I'm going to review it, and I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can. And it makes it so hard to do. But again, I want to congratulate Brant, Lisa, Chris, and Lucas here on bringing this comic to us, because it's not an easy job. So, alright guys, you've been warned. Here is your review. So, Celestial Falcon, issue number 1, written by Chris and Brant. First off, let's talk about the artwork in this book. The artwork is nice in this book. I really enjoyed it. I love the colors as well in the particular issue. There's a couple great panels in this book that was really nice. There's one particular part where Chris is actually checking out his friend Sammy. He does one of these where he sees her in a towel, and he's kind of like, hey, I'm kind of hiding, but not really. You're hot. You know, there's a good panel there. The opening page of the book was really good as he's walking down the street, I thought, which is really nice in here as well. I would have loved to seen a little bit more, like a 2-page spread or a pinup page than just what we got, because there was so much story in this issue. I felt at times that the artist didn't have the space that he needed to really display his artwork. And I thought we could have seen a little bit more of that, because there's a lot of dialogue in this particular story. I think Brant did a nice job with his lettering here. I love the font, and I love how he made all the words fit within the dialogue bubbles as well. At times, the facial expressions may have been a little bit quirky for me, but nevertheless, it was good. It told the story well. The only other problem that I had was that since there were so many characters and you had to fit them all in a, say, dialogue in a particular panel, it made it a little bit confusing for me to display or figure out who was who, because these characters are still so new to me. So, let's talk about the story a little bit. So, in this particular story, we get a great introduction of Chris on what he's thinking. Their narration in the page is absolutely beautiful. In my opinion, this was the best page in the book when it came to the story. And then what happens is we get introduced to some of our supporting cast. We get introduced to Mike, who is Chris's brother, and we get introduced to some of the characters right from the start. We get introduced to his mom, and we're figuring out that they're going to go to this beach this afternoon after school. And you wind up getting to meet all the friends at school right away. Now, here is my little nitpick here with this particular book. We get introduced to a lot of characters really quickly. So as a new reader to this comic book and this story, I felt myself a little bit overwhelmed with the characters. I do like how they're all a nice tight-knit group and they hang out together, but I felt to introduce to you all of them at once was a little bit rushed, in my opinion. And so right away, we get introduced to our characters, and then we get introduced to our teacher as well, who seems to be, we don't know if he's evil or if we don't know if he's good yet, but we get introduced to him as well. And so as we get further into this book, we wind up seeing our friends hanging out at the beach, and they happen to run into our teacher. And the teacher meets them, and something strange happens to the kids while they're at the beach. They wind up getting into, there's an accident that happens at the beach. They wind up somehow developing these strange powers. Now, not all of them gets these powers, but some of them do. And some of them get powers of strength. You wind up seeing the power of healing. You wind up seeing the power of like a Green Lantern in this particular book. So you get to see the kids develop these powers, but we're not sure. I know how they get them, but I don't want to spoil it for you. But they develop these powers. And so we get to see that this kind of weighs heavily on Chris. And I thought that was pretty cool that not all of them get them, but there's some reason, some way, somehow that Chris is destined to be this higher power. So at the end, we wind up seeing the kids, they get into this fight, and they wind up getting to detention, and this teacher by the name of Mr. McKenzie calls them in. So, and that's basically it. He's like, kids, I gotta tell you something. So that's basically the gist of the story without telling you too much of it. So, what did I think of Celestial Falcon issue number 1? I thought it was a good read. I think it was very entertaining to find out, or intriguing to find out what is going to be in store for these children. My issue with it is it just seemed like too much happened too quickly. We got introduced to a lot of characters in a single book. And we got introduced to Chris, Mike, his mom, and the friends. Adam, Richie, Jason, Sammy, and Mr. McKenzie. And we had to get a little bit screen time for every single character on there. And I felt, again, for me as the reader, it overwhelmed me a little bit here. I couldn't make out who certain characters were. I had to go back in certain panels and figuring out who's this person, who developed this particular power, and this and that. So what I would have loved to see a little bit more is get to know more of Chris on who he is. And we actually get a mention of Chris's last name in the book, but it was known as Mr. Ventura, and we didn't know that that's Chris's last name. The teacher calls him Mr. Ventura, but I know who Chris is, you know, but as the reader, you're like, who's Mr. Ventura? You don't know that because his last name was never mentioned before into that part. So that was one little nitpick there that I saw as well. But I like the overall story. I like where it's going. I'm really curious to see what's going to go on with these characters. I just thought it was a little too much too soon, and you can feel that too when you read it. There was a lot that they tried to pack in here with extreme amount of dialogue and trying to explain everything, and I wish this would have been like almost in like 2 parts. Well, it's a story arc, but I would have loved to see maybe half the characters introduced. Like maybe we get Chris and Michael and learn a little bit more about Chris, or maybe learn about the relationship of Sammy and Chris and how they know each other, stuff like that, and then get introduced to the other group of characters a little bit more and see really how close their friendship is, and then get that introduction to their powers, like slow it down a little bit. This for me could have been 2 issues and I would have been happy with that. But that's my personal opinion. I like this story. I think it's great. Again, just I thought it could have been 2 issues instead of 1 and slowed it down a little bit. So, but I enjoyed it. I love the passion here, and I really enjoy how it's kind of like a tribute. You know, the inspiration there is from DC because you get to see like speedster powers and you get to see like Green Lantern powers, Superman powers. It's kind of cool there. I really enjoyed it. So, Chris, guys, crew, you did a nice job with it. I'm going to give you a 3.5 out of 5 stars with this particular first issue, and I'm looking for a little bit of improvement in the next issue. I want to see this challenge here on what you can bring to me. So it's not easy. I probably couldn't do it any better than myself, but again, great first issue. I can't wait to see more. So guys, leave me comments below on what you thought of Celestial Falcon issue number 1 if you read it. And Frontline crew, Brant, Lisa, guys, Chris, don't hesitate to put anything down in those comments below. It's just an honest opinion here. So again, guys, as always, thank you for watching. And until that next comic book review, this is Mike Spider Slayer signing off. And don't forget to check out comicfrontline.com. Don't forget to check out our live show each and every Tuesday night, 9:30, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you real soon. Bye.